The crystalline spires of the Galactic Council's headquarters stretched toward the violet sky of Centauri Prime, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 suns in a dazzling display. Inside the grand chamber, 12 beings of various forms sat in elevated positions, looking down at the simple wooden podium where Ambassador James stood. His plain black suit and silver hair marked him as distinctly human, and to the council members, distinctly primitive. The head counselor, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate metallic shell, spoke first. The council has reviewed Earth's petition for full membership. The translation matrix carried his words in perfect standard English, though the underlying tone of condescension needed no translation. We find your technological development inadequate for current consideration. James remained still, his weathered face betraying no emotion. At 65, he'd spent decades in diplomatic service, but this was humanity's first official appearance before the full council. Behind him sat the human delegation, scientists, military officers, and diplomatic staff, all equally stoic. Furthermore, continued another counselor, this one a cybernetically enhanced organism whose original form was no longer discernible, we have concerns about humanity's violent tendencies. Your historical records indicate a disturbing pattern of conflict resolution through force. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. The council members had reviewed Earth's history with horror: world wars, nuclear weapons, countless smaller conflicts. To them, it proved humanity was too unstable for full membership. James cleared his throat. The sound echoed in the vast chamber. Honorable Council, humanity accepts your decision. His voice carried clearly, each word measured and calm. However, I am obligated to deliver a message from Earth's united government. The council members shifted slightly. This wasn't part of the standard protocol for rejected species. Usually, they simply withdrew to their limited territories, chastened and humbled. Proceed, the head counselor said, more curious than concerned. Humanity will continue its development independently within our assigned sectors. We will abide by General Council laws and respect established boundaries. James paused, his gray eyes sweeping across the assembled beings. But remember this warning, don't make us mad. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers and mechanical clicks of disapproval. The sheer audacity of this primitive species to issue what sounded like a threat to the council was unprecedented. The head counselor's energy form flickered with what might have been amusement. Ambassador James, surely you understand that the combined technological might of the council races exceeds Earth's capabilities by several orders of magnitude. Your warning, while noted, seems misplaced. James smiled then, a small expression that didn't reach his eyes. With respect, it is not a threat but a genuine warning. Humanity has learned much from our violent past. The most important lesson was not about victory, but about survival. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and our own near-extinction events. Each time, we emerged stronger, more adaptable, and more prepared. He continued, his voice never rising but somehow filling the chamber. You see our wars as proof of our primitive nature. We see them as hard lessons in preparation. You view our diverse military strategies as wasteful. We call it redundancy. You consider our continued development of primitive weapons alongside advanced technology as regression. We call it pragmatism. The council members listened with growing unease. Something in the ambassador's calm demeanor suggested depths they hadn't considered. Earth will withdraw its petition and return to our space. We will continue to trade, to learn, and to grow. But remember our warning. It comes from experience. James gathered his papers, actual paper, another sign of human primitiveness in the council's eyes, and turned to leave. Ambassador, called out the head counselor, was that a farewell or a threat? James turned back one last time. Neither, honorable council. It was a courtesy. Humanity hopes for a long and peaceful relationship with the council races. We merely want to ensure there are no misunderstandings about our nature." With that, the human delegation withdrew, leaving behind a chamber of unsettled council members. They had expected submission, perhaps some anger or disappointment. Instead, they received a warning delivered with absolute conviction. The head counselor's energy form swirled in thought. "An interesting species," he mused to his fellow council members. "Primitive, but interesting." None of them realized that they had just witnessed the first move in a game they didn't know they were playing. They would remember this day later, when they finally understood what humanity had been trying to tell them all along. 6 months after humanity's warning, the Galactic Council made its first move. The official document arrived at Earth's embassy on Centauri Prime, its quantum-encrypted data crystal containing what they called necessary regulatory adjustments. Ambassador James sat in his office, a simple room with a real oak desk, a luxury in space but a reminder of home, as he reviewed the contents. The restrictions came in waves. First, the Council declared that human expansion must be environmentally regulated. Their dozen colonial worlds, hard-won over 50 years of space exploration, would be the limit. No new colonies. No new mining operations. No new stations. For the protection of developing species, the document stated, though no such species had been discovered in the restricted zones. Colonel Reed, the military attaché, stood by the window overlooking the alien city. Her uniform was crisp, her posture rigid. "They're boxing us in," she said, not turning from the view. "Classic containment strategy." James nodded, continuing to read. The second wave of restrictions targeted trade. Human goods would require special certification, a process that could take years and cost millions in council credits. Meanwhile, alien technologies would flow freely into human space, creating a carefully managed dependency. "It gets worse," James said, reaching the third section. "They're implementing a new hyperspace lane management system. Our ships will pay triple the standard toll." But the real blow came 3 weeks later. The Council's enforcement fleet arrived at New Eden, Liberty, and Promise, 3 of humanity's most successful colonies. Admiral Banks of the Council Defense Force delivered the evacuation order personally. "This sector has been designated for the greater good," he announced to the colonial governors. "A new trading hub will be established here, serving 17 species. The Council has generously provided relocation options for your settlers." The colonies had 72 hours to evacuate. Over 2 million human lives would be uprooted, their homes and businesses seized for fair compensation, a value determined by the Council's economic algorithms. Back on Earth, the United Government convened an emergency session. The chamber was packed, representatives from every nation attending in person rather than via hologram. The stakes were too high for digital communication. Director Thompson of Intelligence stood at the podium, her voice steady as she delivered her analysis. The Council's actions follow a historical pattern. They did the same to the Arcanian species 2 centuries ago. The Arcanians now serve as manual laborers across Council space, their technology and culture effectively erased. President Morrison, a former engineer turned politician, leaned forward in his chair. "And their response to the Arcanian resistance?" "The Arcanians didn't resist," Thompson replied. "They believed compliance would earn them favor. They were wrong." The chamber fell silent. On the main screen, live feeds showed the Council ships positioning themselves around the 3 colonies. Their sleek designs and enormous size made Earth's best ships look like tugboats beside cruise liners. "They expect us to follow the same pattern," Morrison said, breaking the silence. "Submit, become dependent, and gradually lose our autonomy until we're just another client species." General Roberts, Joint Chiefs Chairman, spoke next. "Our forces in those sectors are outgunned 10 to 1. Conventional resistance would be suicide." "Who said anything about conventional resistance?" Morrison's question hung in the air. He pressed a button, and new images appeared on the screen, projects hidden so deep that even most of Earth's government didn't know they existed. Implementation of Protocol 0 requires full consensus, Morrison reminded them. Once initiated, there's no going back. Our response must be unanimous. The vote took less than 5 minutes. The result was clear: humanity would not submit. As the Council ships began their humanitarian evacuation of the colonies, Earth sent out a single, brief message to all its off-world citizens: come home. Within 24 hours, the colonies were empty. No resistance, no protests, no violence. The Council's admiral was pleased with the smooth operation, noting in his report that humans were finally learning their place in the galaxy. But in his private quarters that night, Ambassador James drafted one final message to the Council. It was just 3 words: you should listen. The Council, celebrating their successful display of power, dismissed the message as empty words from a humbled species. They didn't notice that human ships were quietly disappearing from tracking systems across the galaxy. They didn't detect the massive energy signatures being masked by seemingly primitive technology. And they certainly didn't realize that humanity had spent centuries preparing for exactly this kind of situation. The game was about to change, and only one side knew the real rules. For 3 months after the colonial evacuations, human space went dark. Ships disappeared from commonly used trade routes. Communication beacons fell silent. Monitoring stations reported only static from Earth's sector. The only sign that humanity hadn't simply vanished was a repeating message, broadcasting on all frequencies: you should have listened. In the Council chambers, debates raged about this unexpected development. The head councilor's energy form pulsed with irritation as reports continued to stream in. Their behavior defies all predictive models, announced the Council's chief analyst, her crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights. Previous species subjected to similar restrictions attempted either military resistance or diplomatic appeasement. The humans have done neither. Admiral Banks shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The evacuation went too smoothly, he admitted. 2 million colonists relocated in less than 24 hours, taking nothing but personal belongings. No resistance, no chaos, no panic. It was as if they had practiced it. Deep in Earth's territory, humanity was far from idle. The Sol system had become a fortress, but not in any way the Council would recognize. Scattered throughout the asteroid belt, thousands of seemingly abandoned mining facilities continued their work, their heat signatures masked by primitive nuclear power sources that the Council had dismissed as inefficient. Beneath the surface of Mars, in facilities dug miles deep, automated factories operated at full capacity. Their products weren't the energy weapons or shield generators the Council would expect. Instead, they created simpler, more devastating tools of war. On Earth, in a hardened facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Morrison met with his war cabinet. The room was deliberately analog: no quantum computers, no AI assistants, no advanced tech that could be compromised. Just humans, paper maps, and centuries of martial knowledge. Project Retrospect is complete, Director Thompson reported. Every Council communication system, defense network, and AI hub has been thoroughly mapped. Their cybersecurity is impressive, if you're defending against their level of technology. They never considered that someone would use primitive viruses, the kind our hackers perfected fighting each other centuries ago. General Roberts spread out a physical star chart. Red markers indicated Council military installations, blue showed human assets, and green highlighted critical infrastructure. Phase 1 of Operation Throwback is ready. Our outdated kinetic weapons have been positioned near every major Council shipyard. They're moving so slowly that the Council sensors register them as space debris. And the Pandora protocols? Morrison asked. Ready but sealed, Thompson answered. 5,000 different weapon systems, each designed to target specific weaknesses in Council member species. Bioweapons, nanites, tailored radiation pulses, everything humanity ever theorized could be used in war, we've made real. But kept contained. The president nodded slowly. We never wanted this. Every weapon we built, every strategy we planned, was designed with one hope, that we'd never have to use them. In orbit above Earth, the last pieces moved into place. Humanity's fleet had not fled as the Council assumed. Instead, every ship had undergone a transformation. Their advanced engines were shut down, replaced by primitive, nuclear drives that put out enough radiation to mask the ship's true capabilities. Ambassador James, now back on Earth, drafted what would be humanity's final warning to the Council. The message was transmitted using an old radio system, the kind the Council considered too primitive to monitor. To the Galactic Council, 3 months ago, you proved our worst fears correct. You demonstrated that advanced civilization doesn't mean advanced wisdom. You showed us that our paranoia, our constant preparation for the worst, was justified. We tried to warn you. Don't make us mad, we said. It wasn't a threat. It was a plea. Humanity spent its entire history preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. Every war we fought taught us lessons. Every conflict showed us new ways to survive. While you were perfecting energy weapons, we were mastering kinetics. While you developed AI, we learned to fight without it. While you forgot your violent past, we embraced the wisdom our struggles taught us. You have 24 hours to restore our colonies and remove all restrictions on human expansion. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is your last chance to prove that advanced civilization means advanced wisdom. Remember, we didn't start this. But we are prepared to finish it. The message was sent, and humanity waited. In stations hidden throughout Council space, human operators stood ready. They didn't need orders. They didn't need complex AI to coordinate their actions. They had something more reliable, centuries of planning for exactly this moment. The Council had 24 hours to decide, wisdom or war. The Council's 24-hour deadline passed without response. In their arrogance, they had dismissed humanity's warning as the empty posturing of a primitive species. That illusion shattered precisely 1 second after the deadline expired. Throughout Council space, quantum communication networks began to fail. Not with the dramatic crash they might have expected, but with subtle, inexplicable errors that spread like a virus through their systems. Messages arrived corrupted, defense coordinates shifted by microscopic but critical degrees, and AI systems began reporting impossible contradictions. In the Council's emergency session, panic was setting in. The head counselor's energy form flickered erratically as reports flooded in. Impossible, declared the Council's chief of security, his cybernetic implants glowing with stress. Their technology is centuries behind ours. They can't possibly be responsible for these failures. A junior analyst, her holographic form trembling, spoke up. Sir, we're detecting thousands of small anomalies in our defense grid. Objects we dismissed as space debris are moving. On the main display, red dots representing Council military installations began winking out. Not destroyed, simply gone dark. Silent. Blind. Their mighty warships, each capable of destroying entire planets, floated helplessly in space as their quantum computers tried and failed to boot up. Admiral Banks stood before the Council, his proud bearing finally shaken. The humans, they didn't just go dark 3 months ago. They were testing us. Every communication failure, every glitch we dismissed, they were mapping our responses, learning our protocols. The revelation hit harder than any weapon could have. The Council had assumed humanity's reliance on primitive technology was a weakness. They never considered it might be a choice. In his private chambers, the head counselor received a direct transmission. The method was almost laughably ancient, radio waves, the kind the council had abandoned centuries ago. But it came through clear and strong while their quantum networks collapsed. This is Director Thompson of Earth Intelligence. By now you've noticed some irregularities in your systems. Let me explain what's happening. Your quantum computers are beautiful machines, perfect in their complexity. But they share a common flaw: they were all designed to defend against advanced attacks. No one considered protecting them against the digital equivalent of a rock through a window. The viruses disrupting your networks aren't advanced AI. They're simple, brutal programs we developed fighting each other centuries ago. Your quantum security can't stop them because it doesn't recognize them as threats. Like trying to stop a bullet with a force field designed to deflect energy weapons. Those debris fields your sensors ignored? Kinetic kill vehicles, powered by simple nuclear engines. No AI guidance, no quantum entanglement, just basic Newtonian physics and human calculation. Your sensors ignored them because they were too primitive to register as weapons. We didn't advance beyond these technologies. We advanced alongside them. Every new discovery was an addition to our arsenal, not a replacement for it. The council chambers erupted in chaos as more systems failed. The defensive screens protecting their headquarters flickered and died as ancient computer viruses, simple enough to fit on a 20th-century floppy disk, tore through their quantum firewalls. "Sir," the security chief reported, his voice shaking, "we're detecting massive energy signatures emerging from human space. They're ships, they're not powered by nuclear engines. Those were decoys, masking their true capabilities." The head counselor watched in horror as humanity's real fleet emerged from hiding. Ships that combined both primitive and advanced technology in ways the council had never imagined. Railguns alongside plasma weapons. Nuclear missiles guided by quantum computers. Vessels that could fight at full capacity even with their advanced systems disabled, because they never abandoned the primitive backup systems. They didn't fall behind, Admiral Banks whispered, finally understanding. They never stopped preparing for the worst. Every war in their history taught them something, and they kept those lessons. The Council's mighty civilization, built on the assumption that advancement meant abandoning the past, faced a species that had done the opposite. Humanity had taken every step forward while keeping one foot firmly planted in the lessons of their violent past. As the Council's defenses crumbled, not from destruction but from simple, elegant infiltration, humanity's message played one final time across all frequencies: "We tried to warn you. You should have listened." The revelation was complete. The Council hadn't been dealing with a primitive species, they had been dealing with one that had mastered both the future and the past. As the Council's defense networks crumbled, humanity revealed just a fraction of what they had been preparing for centuries. In a secure command center deep beneath Earth's surface, President Morrison and his war cabinet watched as Operation Throwback entered its second phase. "Show them Target Package 1, Morrison ordered, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. "Just a demonstration. No casualties." Across Council space, humanity's arsenal revealed itself. Not with the overwhelming destruction they were capable of, but with surgical precision that proved even more terrifying to their adversaries. Near the Council's largest shipyard, a swarm of what they had dismissed as space debris suddenly activated. These kinetic strike vehicles, moving at relativistic speeds, passed within meters of the Council's most advanced warships. They didn't impact, they didn't need to. The message was clear: if those had been attacks, nothing would have survived. Director Thompson stood before a holographic display showing the status of various operations. The Council focused on energy shields and plasma weapons, she explained to the assembled leaders. They forgot that simple physical objects moving at near-light speed carry more energy than their most powerful weapons. In another sector, a cloud of nanomachines, based on technology the Council had deemed obsolete, surrounded a defense station. Within minutes, they had disassembled the outer hull into its component atoms, then reassembled it. The station was untouched, but its commanders now understood their vulnerability. General Roberts activated a secondary display showing biological weapon facilities. Species-specific viral agents, engineered to target unique alien physiologies. Non-lethal variants only, for now. Just enough to demonstrate our capabilities. The Council's biomonitoring systems detected the presence of these agents in their atmospheric processors. The viruses weren't active, they were merely proof that humanity could deploy them at will. What truly terrifies them, Thompson noted, isn't the technology itself. It's the methodology behind it. We didn't just develop weapons, we developed entire categories of warfare they had forgotten were possible. On the main screen, footage showed Council ships trying to engage human vessels. Their energy weapons, designed to overwhelm shields, passed harmlessly through hulls made of materials so simple they were nearly invisible to advanced targeting systems. They thought our continued use of physical armor was primitive, a naval officer explained. They never considered we might have found ways to make it more effective than energy shields. Every time they developed a new weapon, we developed both a counter and a backup plan using older technology. In orbit around key Council worlds, small devices activated, temporarily disrupting gravity fields. The effects lasted only seconds, but they proved that humanity could shut down the artificial gravity that many Council species had evolved to depend on. Psychological warfare, Thompson explained. Show them that we can disable their basic life support without harming them. Make them question every system they rely on. The demonstrations continued. Quantum computers crashed when exposed to simple electromagnetic pulses. Advanced AI systems were overwhelmed by basic logic paradoxes that human children learned to recognize. Sophisticated navigation systems were confused by arrays of simple mirrors and radioactive decoys. In the Council chambers, the true horror of their situation became clear. They hadn't been fighting a primitive species, they had been fighting one that had mastered warfare on every level, from the quantum to the chemical, from the biological to the psychological. Their weapons, the Council's chief scientist reported, his crystalline form vibrating with distress, they're not just advanced or primitive. They're both. They've taken every military advancement from their history and found ways to combine them. They can fight a quantum war and a chemical war simultaneously. The head counselor received another transmission from Earth, this time delivered by a physical courier, a method so old it bypassed all their security protocols. For every weapon we showed you, we have 1,000 more. For every tactic we demonstrated, we have countless variations. But more importantly, we have something you forgot existed, restraint. We could have destroyed your fleets. We chose to demonstrate our capabilities instead. We could have unleashed plagues that would have ended your species. We chose to show you we could create them instead. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about power. This is about understanding. You needed to see that advancement doesn't mean abandoning the past. It means learning from it. The arsenal we revealed isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to teach you why we kept saying, "Don't make us mad." The Council finally understood. Humanity's arsenal wasn't just weapons, it was centuries of survival lessons, preserved and perfected while the rest of the galaxy rushed to forget their violent past. In the aftermath of humanity's demonstration, the Council retreated to their most secure facility, a station deep within a black hole's orbit. Here, surrounded by the ultimate power of nature, they began to truly comprehend the species they had so gravely misunderstood. The head counselor's energy form had stabilized, no longer flickering with panic but pulsing with deep contemplation. Before him, holographic displays showed scenes from Earth's history, not the sanitized versions they had previously studied, but the raw, unfiltered truth humanity had provided. We fundamentally misunderstood their wars, the Council's historian admitted, her crystalline form reflecting the light of distant stars. We saw chaos. They were conducting experiments. Every conflict, every battle, every skirmish, they were learning. On the main display, footage from Earth's world wars played alongside modern human military exercises. The parallels were striking. Tactics developed in trenches were adapted for space warfare. Guerrilla strategies evolved into asteroid belt ambush techniques. Even their sports, activities the Council had dismissed as primitive entertainment, were sophisticated training exercises in disguise. Their fiction, another counselor noted, examining human entertainment broadcasts. We thought their constant stories about alien invasions and apocalyptic scenarios were signs of paranoia. They were running simulations, preparing their population for every possible scenario. Admiral Banks, now understanding the depth of his previous tactical errors, spoke up. Their military never stopped preparing for old-style warfare even as they developed new technologies. We thought it was institutional inertia. It was deliberate redundancy. The display shifted to show human industrial facilities. Factories capable of producing both quantum processors and simple combustion engines. Shipyards that could build both advanced starships and primitive but effective kinetic weapons platforms. Training facilities where soldiers learned both energy weapon protocols and hand-to-hand combat. Their educational system, the Council's education minister observed, includes mandatory studies of historical conflicts. Their children learn about both their victories and their failures. They don't hide their violent past, they study it. In the center of the chamber, a new hologram appeared, a simple tree. The Council members watched in silence as it endured simulated seasons, bending with strong winds but never breaking, losing leaves but growing new ones, its roots growing deeper with each challenge. This is how they see themselves, the historian explained. Not as the most advanced or the strongest, but as the most adaptable. Every challenge they faced became a lesson. Every threat became an opportunity to develop new defenses. Even their bodies reflect this philosophy. They can eat almost anything, survive in a wide range of environments, and heal from incredible injuries. The head counselor raised a manipulator field, and the displays showed Earth's diplomatic records. Look at their diplomatic protocols. Every peace treaty includes detailed plans for potential conflict. Every trade agreement has contingencies for betrayal. Even their most basic contracts have redundancies and fail-safes. They never trusted us, a counselor said. No, the historian corrected. They never trusted anyone, including themselves. Their history taught them that peace is precious precisely because it can be lost. Their preparedness wasn't about anticipating betrayal, it was about preserving peace by being ready for its failure. The displays showed Earth space colonies, not as they had been, but as they were designed to be. Each one was a fortress disguised as a civilian settlement. Every habitat had hidden military capabilities. Every mining operation could be converted to produce weapons. Even their civilian ships could be rapidly modified for combat. Their warning, Admiral Banks realized, wasn't a threat. It was an expression of their deepest fear, that we would force them to use the capabilities they spent centuries developing. They didn't want to prove they were right about needing these preparations. The head counselor's energy form pulsed with what might have been admiration. We thought we were teaching them their place in the galaxy. Instead, they taught us something we had forgotten. Peace isn't maintained by forgetting war, it's maintained by remembering its cost while being prepared for its possibility. On the screens, Earth cities glowed with life. Children played in parks built atop hardened bunkers. Scientists developed medical treatments that could be adapted for biological warfare. Artists created works that doubled as encrypted military communications. The Council finally understood. Humanity's violent past hadn't made them primitive, it had made them wise. They hadn't survived despite their conflicts, they had survived because they never stopped learning from them. 1 month after humanity's demonstration of power, the Galactic Council convened for what would become a historic session. The Grand Chamber, once a symbol of the Council's supreme authority, now held a different energy. The elevated seats of the Council members had been lowered to the same level as the diplomatic pods, a physical representation of the new reality. Ambassador James stood at the center of the chamber, his simple black suit a stark contrast to the ornate forms of the Council species. Behind him, holographic displays showed the ongoing restoration of human colonies. New Eden, Liberty, and Promise were being rebuilt, their populations returning to find their homes not just restored but improved by Council technology freely shared. The head counselor's energy form glowed steadily as he spoke. The Council acknowledges its error in judgment. We mistook preparation for primitiveness, and wisdom for weakness. This mistake nearly led our civilization to disaster. James nodded, his weathered face showing neither triumph nor resentment. Humanity accepts your acknowledgement. But more importantly, we accept your understanding. That was always our goal, not dominance, but comprehension. On the displays, scenes from across Council space showed the beginning of profound changes. Council warships now trained alongside human vessels, learning the value of both advanced and simple technologies. Council species began incorporating redundancy into their systems, no longer relying solely on their most advanced technologies. We propose a new structure for galactic governance, the head counselor continued. Not with humanity as our rulers, but as our teachers. Your species has mastered something we had forgotten, the art of maintaining peace through eternal vigilance. The Council's chief diplomat, her crystalline form shimmering, activated a new display showing the proposed changes. All Council species will maintain independent defense capabilities. Technology will be shared, but each civilization will be encouraged to maintain their unique approaches to survival. Unity through diversity, strength through redundancy. The human concept of trust but verify will become our guiding principle, another counselor added. We will pursue peace while maintaining readiness for conflict. Not because we expect war, but because we value peace enough to protect it. James stepped forward, addressing the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds. Humanity accepts this proposal with one condition, that the lesson be truly learned. We don't want to be seen as conquerors or saviors. We want to be understood as what we are, survivors who never stopped learning from our past. The changes were already spreading beyond the military and political spheres. Council education systems began incorporating historical studies. Scientific research no longer focused solely on advancing technology but on understanding and preserving older methods. Cultural exchange programs flourished as species shared not just their achievements but their struggles, their failures, and their lessons learned. Perhaps most importantly, James continued, we want the Council to understand why we were so insistent on our warning. Don't make us mad wasn't a threat, it was a recognition of a simple truth. The most dangerous opponent isn't the one who wants to fight, but the one who is prepared to fight while desperately hoping they won't have to. The head counselor raised his energy form in the traditional gesture of agreement. We understand now. Your species' evolutionary path, marked by constant challenges and adaptations, created something unique in our galaxy, a civilization that advanced technologically while retaining the wisdom of its hardships. Across human space, military installations began powering down their alert status. The thousands of weapon systems designed for the Council species were documented, then safely sealed away, not destroyed, but preserved as both deterrent and reminder. The new Council, James announced, will not be divided into advanced and primitive species. There will be no hierarchies based on technological achievement alone. Each civilization's strength will be measured by its ability to adapt, to learn, and to maintain peace through understanding rather than dominance. As the session concluded, a new message replaced the warning that had haunted Council communications. Broadcast in all languages, using both quantum networks and simple radio waves, it read, peace through understanding, strength through memory, unity through diversity. The galaxy entered a new era. The Council learned that true advancement meant building upon the past rather than abandoning it. Humanity learned that their paranoia had served its purpose, not by winning a war, but by preventing one. And all species learned that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't technology or weapons, but the wisdom to know when not to use them. The universe had finally understood why humans kept saying, "Don't make us mad." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a warning. It was an invitation to understand that peace is most secure when built on the foundation of lessons learned from conflict.